Welcome to the Knowledge Entrepreneurs Show, where we celebrate the innovators driving change in the education industry. At Edison OS, we've worked with over 500 knowledge entrepreneurs to turn their edtech ideas into profitable businesses. Hi, Maya. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Knowledge Entrepreneur Show. Thank you so much for taking time out for this.
Thank you so much, Jagmohan, for having me here. It's really a pleasure and a delight.
Likewise, Maya. Maya, the usual thing that I do before I get onto a podcast with anybody is to learn as much as possible about them
Mhm.
from the internet, LinkedIn, websites, so on and so forth. But I'm just going to set aside all that because I don't have a lot of clarity because you seem to have done a lot of things.
Mhm.
So I would like to hear it from you. What do you do now? What I know as of now is you're a dance movement based therapist. You're into somatic coaching and all that, right? So I would like to learn from you first of all. How did you get into coaching, and did you always plan on getting into coaching?
Well, actually, not really. Coaching kind of happened, so to speak. And if I were to just kind of take a step back and give you a journey into my into how my career has shaped from the time I did my engineering. I'm a telecommunications engineer. Thereafter, I did my master's in business administration, and post that, I got into the workforce. That's when I started working with some of the largest technology and big four firms in the world. And while I was doing my quote unquote, corporate job, that's also the time, almost about spending about close to almost a decade into the corporate. That's when my aha moment happened. And while I was going through my own experience of dealing with workplace burnout at that point in time. This was exactly 10 years back, and that's when I chanced upon a workshop on dance movement therapy. And this being something new and nascent at that time, it just got my attention, and I wanted to know. I kind of just walked the path of my curiosity, and I went for that workshop. And what happened in that 2 hours workshop was transformational for me. And I realized that there is so much more that understanding what somatic intelligence can do for us as human beings, as individuals, that I really wanted to get deeper understanding into that field of work. And so thereafter, the next thing that I knew was to enroll for the movement therapy course from Tata Institute of Social Sciences in Mumbai. And at that time, it happened to be I happened to be a part of their first maiden batch in India. In 2014 was when the course was started. And very interestingly, they asked for people with the background from sociology, psychology, and MSW. I had none of that. I am a telecommunication engineer. I was working for a big four management grad, and I had none of those qualifications. But all that I had was a lifelong learning, um, uh, determination, being a lifelong learner, and being led by my curiosity, and I guess good influencing skills and negotiation skills. And somehow was able to crack the interview and convince the admission panel to actually have me as a part of their cohort. And so I got into the course, and those 9 months of training really showed me a different side of life and a side of world which I did not pretty much know existed. Because coming in from a pure play engineering sort of a background, it was the more of the rational, logical reasoning, head level side of things that I was operating from. And here we were looking at a very different world. And that really got me more interested to study this, not just for my personal well-being and transformation, but I was also curious to see and understand how it works on others, and what is it that I can do to create a shift and a transformation for others. And very interestingly, again, sharing this with you, the fact that all this while I've been working on the the technology and process part of transformation. And here I was intrigued to look at the people transformation piece, like, okay, what would it mean if I were to really take this to other people and see how that could impact their lives. And I think that is how my initiation into the world of somatic intelligence and operating as a movement therapy practitioner started. I continued it for quite some time as a, much like a hobby, like any other entrepreneur would perhaps try out their own, like what we call today pivot. So it was like my small way of, kind of doing my own pivot and trying to understand, does this work, am I good at it, can I make money out of it, kind of going back to all the four ikigai questions. And when I had subsequent answers to that, it took me several years to find those answers though. But when I really found those answers, I knew that this was what I really wanted to build my life and career on. So therefore my career 2.0, as I call it now, kind of started, and which pretty much seemed like saying goodbye to the corporate world and saying hello to the entrepreneurial world and starting something of my own, and sailing out into the uncharted waters. And pretty much that's how it happened. There was no such plan, but I call myself an accidental entrepreneur, purely led by passion and purpose.
Wow, great stuff, Maya. Maya, what I want to ask you is, you were working in one of the big four, organizations. You're a management grad, and pretty much what a lot of them aspire for,
Hmm.
from a corporate point of view. But you said you had a little bit of a burnout and all that, and it's understandable why you would want to look into something like a dance movement therapy or something to take your mind off and stuff. But were you just exploring that for your own personal benefit, or from the start you were kind of thinking about transitioning into another career altogether and move away from what you were
No,
doing?
that's actually
Or
a very
if not, when did
interesting
that happen?
question. Yeah, that's actually a very interesting question, Jagmohan, because to be very honest, I started off with just using it as a pure play way of, self discovery and for my pure and for my individual well being. So it started off more as, like I said, it was just a curiosity that I kind of hopped on the bandwagon, and I say, hey, let's just try out this new, workshop or this new event that's happening around during the weekend. Most of us do that, right? And when you're actually led by your curiosity, what interesting magic it can transform into, right? And I kind of just followed my sense of curiosity and allowed it to take me where it took me. And so when I really ended up taking the course, I did not in my wildest dream think that I would perhaps do what I'm doing today. And to be very honest and fair with you, I come from a family of doctors, engineers, and lawyers. So we do not have, or perhaps we never kind of have any conversations around starting a business or becoming an entrepreneur. So I am a first generation entrepreneur and took a lot of shall we say, inner courage to really do what I'm doing today. And if I could give you a little bit of the backstory, when I tried to have a conversation with my family in 2016 and 2017 that, hey, this is what I want to do, to give up my, cushy corporate job and do something drastically different, everybody came and said that, I mean, they warned me against it, that are you crazy? Are you going mad? Like, what is all this? Like, this is just a fad. It will go away. That's how they kind of, quote unquote tried to brainwash me, but it didn't kind of work in their favor. But yeah, I think if you are really passionate about something, and this is something I also ask folks that come into me for their career transition coaching, that is this something that is a burn or an itch? If it is just an itch which is just a passing fad, that I'm passionate about this idea today, and 3 months later I'm running after another idea, and 6 months later everything dies down, that then you are not cut out for it. Becoming an entrepreneur is not easy. There is a certain I would say certain set of characters and caliber one requires to be an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs are the people who find solutions to problems, right? And you do not necessarily need to start a business to be called an entrepreneur. You can work within an organization and still have an entrepreneurial mindset. And I think when I really kind of went back to looking at my my personality type and looking at everything that I've done since I was in school and college, etc., I kind of walked down my own, career graph, and looked at the fact that, hey, you know what, when I was in college, I was doing my MBA. When I was doing my Masters of Business Administration, I was actually taking up tutorial classes for somebody who was preparing to enter the Masters of Business Administration. So I was coaching somebody who could get trained, and who could apply for the examination. I also did, back in the days, I was doing something which was entrepreneurial in the sphere of, selling those Amway products, etc. This was all like just for a few pocket money when you are in college, you are a grad, something like that. So I knew that there was something that I was always curious to do more than what I was doing. And so I just had it somewhere, but maybe back in the days we did not call it being an entrepreneur or having that entrepreneurial mindset. But now I do understand that I already had it, just that I hadn't recognized it for myself, hadn't acknowledged it for myself. And I think it took me some time to really know, hey, you know what, perhaps this is something I could do. And I'll give you an interesting, trivia into the fact that when I was really kind of working with the fact that, now or not or never, or shall I do this, or still continue on what I'm doing in terms of my, corporate career, etc. I kind of came across this very interesting book, called The Five Regrets of the Dying. And one of the regret in the book, is mentioned that, I wish I had done this. So I really said to myself, you know what, I don't want to be sitting on my deathbed one day and thinking of the fact that, hey, you know what, I have lived my entire life thinking, wishing that I wish I had, you know acted on that, instinct, or really gone ahead with that particular plan. And I really don't want to do that. I want to live a life, um, uh, 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 I want to live a life that of zero regrets, basically. And therefore, what's the max that will happen? So I really had to kind of coach myself, and in many ways I did that, to say, hey, you know what, what's the max that could happen if I were to take the plunge and go ahead and, kind of leave my corporate, a job, and start something of my own. There's a 50% chance that you will succeed, and there's a 50% chance that you will not. And if you go by the fact that, okay, let's say if you succeed, that's great, I mean, that's what you would want. But if you do not succeed, what's the worst that could happen? The worst that could happen is that you have still gained experience, so you're never starting from scratch. And that's what I kind of, had to self coach myself and say that, hey, let's not disempower ourselves by asking, what if I were to fail? But ask ourselves, what if I were to fly? And so I really had to ask myself those empowering questions, and quote unquote, motivate myself by asking myself and reminding myself that, what if I were to fly? FLY. And again, the word FLY, it's an acronym. The way I look at it is, if you want to fly, FLY, first love yourself.
Great. Loving yourself. Okay, we'll come to that. But before that, you've mentioned this word a couple of
Hmm.
times. Uh, Now, when you were sharing, what is somatic coaching? I've heard a lot of other coaching, Maya,
Right.
but somatic coaching is something that I'm hearing only after I met you.
Interesting. Yeah, I know. It's kind of, it's interesting that a lot of folks do not know what somatic coaching is, and I kind of get asked this question in every forum, every place that I've been so far. So somatic coaching, basically, the word soma is the body. So somatic coaching is basically
Okay.
when we look at the interconnectedness of the mind, body, and emotions, and look beyond just the cognitive processes, which is a head level. So we are looking at how can we deepen our understanding of ourselves, of the world around us, and therefore take that learning into the my work in the somatic coaching space is working with teams and working with organizations, where I take this in the sphere of embodied learning. Embodied learning is what sticks around with you for a longer time than a traditional learning method, because everything that we do is crafted with a VAK model. VAK is visual, auditory, kinesthetic. So there, it's a multidisciplinary, multi-sensory approach to coaching. So it's not just a conversation in terms of a verbal conversation, but we look at non-verbal cues, we look at your movement orientation, and that's how we are able to able to hold the space. So in the leadership coaching and development space, I use somatic intelligence to really help my participants look at the concepts, whatever concepts we are working on, from a kinesthetic empathy space and from a somatic intelligence. When we tap into the wisdom of the body, which is actually 97% of our wisdom of our consciousness, basically it's the 3% consciousness which is what we are using. That is the the mindset and the mind. But the 97% of the consciousness kind of remains untapped. And imagine what's the magic that will unfold if we were to really understand it and move with it. And coming to the word move, my brand is also Move with Maya. So yeah.
Got it, Maya. I'm going to come to it, but before that, I'm just going to take a step back.
Mm.
And you said you did a 9-month program
Yeah,
with TISS at
that's right.
Mumbai, right? And I think this was 10 years back,
Correct.
but you totally started on your own from about 2016, 2017. So you did all that while you worked, is it? You kind of built up a foundation for your 2016, 2017
Yes, I was
while
doing
you
it
still
more
worked?
as a as a, like I said, it was more like a weekend hobby sort of a thing. I kind of did it
Right,
more like,
right.
okay, let's just try out on friends and family, the most unassuming people that you would go and try your hands out when you're trying to build a new platform, or work on your business ideas, etc. So during the weekends would gather a bunch of folks, and say, hey, I'm going to take you through a workshop, and this is how it is. And primarily that's how kind of I started building on my shall we say entrepreneurial muscle, to understand, okay, does this work, what kind of group does this work with, and what's the feedback that I'm getting from them, am I good at it, can I hold a group, and can I take the feedback from the group, what does it take for me to stand in front of a crowd of 100 plus people, etc. So all of that was something that I was maybe consciously or unconsciously training myself on. And now I can see that how all of that really helped me in doing what I'm doing today, holding space for 400 plus folks in a training session, etc., when I'm doing this kind of work right now as a professional.
Got it, Maya. And at what point, or what was that particular incident or a situation
Hmm.
which made you feel like, okay, you know what, I'm going to go full time? Because for 3 years, you were, okay, weekend stuff. At what point did
This is
you
a very
decide? What
interesting
gave you the
question.
strength?
Yeah, so that is very interesting question. So very likely, like you said, so I passed out in 2015 as a part of the the program, and 2016 is when I started doing this more as a weekend hobby kind of a stuff. And so I used to, there was an Excel on my desktop, I used to call it the happiness project. So this was called the happiness
Okay.
project, and I would do it during the weekends and track, okay, which all sessions have I taken, which kind of group, what's the feedback, and kind of, I mean, my own sweet spot to kind of go back and look at it during the weekends. And so I think it was in 2019 August, when I traveled to San Francisco, and I happened to meet Sheryl Sandberg, now the ex COO of Meta, erstwhile Facebook. And I was part of a global cohort where I was, fortunate enough to meet her in person. And Sheryl asked this question: what would you do if you were not afraid? She asked this question: what would you do if you were not afraid? And I was at that point in my life where I was just waiting at the fence. I was really waiting at the fence of, I was really dying inside of me. There was this burning desire to go out there and do something, to do something different, but just that I probably didn't have the didn't have the courage to sort of go ahead and really start working on that idea. And August 2019, I had this conversation. October 2019 is when I put down my papers in the corporate job that I was doing. And Jan 2020 is when I served my last working day at the corporate. And Jan 2020 is when I served the last working day in corporate, and thereafter I moved on to taking a 2-year break which I did, and that served me very good, because that 2 years break. And very interestingly, just to give you a trivia, I moved from living in a corporate jungle. I was living in Mumbai at that time, in time and space, to literally living in a jungle. So I moved into a very rustic rural village in Goa, and I spent 2 years
Wow.
over there. And who knew that the pandemic would happen, in March, and the world would come to a lockdown. And most of my friends called me at that point in time, saying that, hey, did you have an idea that this was going to happen, and you kind of moved out to a much more, a better and green place closer to nature and stuff like that. But it was interesting that somehow, synchronicity, or whatever you want to call it, it just worked out in my favor. And that's how it happened. And yeah, I think that 2 years, break, while the world was kind of going through a huge global pandemic. And I think that also, in many ways, like, if you look at how the world of work changed in a post pandemic world, and how our how the importance of well-being, mental, emotional, physical well-being, has been put to the fore, not just by individuals but by organizations. Because now we have understood that, hey, if I mean, we've been hearing this adage like health is wealth, but it's just for, it's just like, we know health is wealth, but who really kind of looks at it from that perspective? But now people understood that, yes, you can have all the money, all the riches in the world, but if you do not have your health in place, then definitely, that's something we really need to care about. And not just, talk about it only when we are ill, but really talk about it more from a perspective of proactive you know proactive proactively looking at, a well-being. And I think that also kind of that particular phase of the COVID spoke a lot about what we call now the loneliness epidemic. So while there was a global pandemic, there was a loneliness epidemic. People were staying in their own places, and they were feeling a lot of disassociation that was happening. And therefore, when we wanted to bring people together, how do we make them come together through what the kind of work that I do? So that's how the work that I started, I think the timing just kind of was right for me. And that's when I started working on this. I moved to Bangalore, which is where I stay and live right now. And my work started as a independent coach and consultant, and it's been great so far, by God's grace.
Awesome, Maya. Coming, to the next thing, how did Move with Maya come about? And b- and sorry, follow up question is, I'm asking this on behalf of aspiring entrepreneurs.
Mm,
The first thing that new entrepreneurs do is work on their logo, build a name, brand, and everything. But you've started your foundational work like 10 years back, and you took the plunge
mm,
properly in 2020 Jan.
mm.
So how did Move with Maya come about? Although it seems recent, how many years of work in progress is that? And how much of entrepreneurship you'd already done before launching Move with Maya?
Yeah, this is very interesting question, Jagmohan, that you ask, because a lot of people think that, hey, I need to get my logo, I need to get my branding, I need to get my website, I need to do X, Y, and Z, and 210 things to start doing something. My answer is no. And I am a living example of that. If you want to do something, just go ahead and do it. Don't wait for the right moment, don't wait for the right people, don't wait for the right website or whatever it is, a funder, founder, co-founder, none of that really matters. If you have a dream, dare and do. So I always use this 3D as an example: dream, dare, do. Like, if you have a dream, just go ahead, dare, and then do it. So I think this my entire transition, and my uh, 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 um, the I think the embodiment for me as of an entrepreneurial spirit started very much like you said 10 years back. But just that I did not see myself as an entrepreneur in the conventional sense of self. But the fact that, yes, when I moved to Bangalore, in the post pandemic world, very very recently, as recent as a year and a half back, that's when I started setting up my work in a much more structured and professional manner. And once I started getting the first few clients, and it almost like the word spread like fire, because I got raving reviews from the first set of clients that I worked with, and I got a lot of referrals from the set of folks that I worked with, and business was running good. And that's when I knew, okay, now perhaps is the time to kind of look at it more from a formalizing and giving it a professional lift. And therefore Move with Maya was born, which is as new as 1 month old. But yeah, that's how the story has been so far.
Got it, Maya. Maya, so we've spoken about the different stuff that you do, but now that you've kind of structured everything, and you're moving. Sorry, I mean you have
Yes,
this brand Move with Maya, or I was about to say you're moving with the brand Move
absolutely,
with
I am
Maya.
moving with it, and I ensure
So
that everybody moves along with it.
right. So, what exactly are your offerings as a somatic coach, or a lot of other things that you might do? I don't want to, box you into somatic coaching or something like that. And what are the problems
Hmm.
that people can come to you with
Okay.
for a solution?
Sure. Okay, that's a good one to start with. Okay, so what I work mainly is using somatic coaching and somatic intelligence as the methodology or the tool, and in the sphere of leadership development and coaching. And I also use it in the sphere of diversity and inclusion workshops. And then we also work with organizations in the sphere of workplace well-being and corporate employee engagement. So largely these are the offerings that I have. And as you perhaps already understand, that it is a service offering that we have, and we are purely a coaching and consulting firm, and it's a service offerings that we have so far. Primarily we work a lot with B2B clients, wherein if you are an organization and you want to build on a thriving and psychologically safe workplace, work culture, inclusive work cultures, that's when you would possibly look out for somebody like me. And the methodology that we use is move to move. And again, the word move has a lot of significance and importance, and I just want to break it down for everybody listening and watching right now to understand what does it mean. The word move is also an acronym, and I'll come to it a moment later. But I want to share why the word move is of significance, because most likely a lot of people will think of, okay, when you say move, are you talking about move as in like dance or some physical movement? While yes, that too, but we are also talking about move as in movement of the spirit, movement of your emotions, movement of the way you look at life, and movement of you as a professional in terms of your career, in terms of your growth trajectory, movement of you as an organization. So movement is akin to life, movement is akin to growth, and movement is akin to transformation. So we are an organization that helps you design your transformation. So that's what we largely do. Now when I talk about designing your transformation both as an organization and also as an individual. And how do we help individuals to design their transformation? With the set of career transition coaching that we do, the career transition coaching services. So if you are an individual who is looking at transitioning from a full-fledged corporate into an entrepreneurial space, so definitely we help you into looking at how do you kind of transition from a corporate to an entrepreneurial space. If you are somebody who is perhaps looking at moving into a unconventional domain, or an unconventional, or making an unconventional career move, something again which I personally have done it, and make a conscious career choice, these are the areas again we help you with. The other piece is when you are looking at accelerating your career and transitioning into a leadership position. So we largely work with folks who are in their senior mid career to senior professional journeys, people with minimum of 12 plus years of experience, 15 plus years of experience. Those are the set of folks we work with largely in the mid and senior career professionals.
Wow. Okay, got it, Maya. Well, probably, I'll conclude with this one question.
Mm-hmm.
Career transition is one of the key things today, especially after the pandemic. A lot of people, there was this mass resignation. Is
Yes,
that what
great,
the
great
movement was called?
resignation. The great,
The Great
yeah,
Resignation.
yeah.
Yeah, that happened. And a lot of people now,
Quiet quitting and great resignation. Yes, so there was the quiet quitting was the another word which you might have heard a lot in the wake of the the pandemic. So they said great
okay,
resignation, great reboot, great reshuffle. So in the HR world we used to use this as a language: great resignation, great
right.
reboot, great reshuffle. So the world, as it was going through the pandemic, there was all of this quote unquote dance that was happening, the
Okay.
movement.
Quiet quitting is something that I did not hear about. What is
Okay, so
quiet quitting?
quiet quitting and we have loud quitting also. So these are very interesting terms. So quiet quitting
Okay.
are exactly when people are disengaged, and this is exactly the the work that I do is when people are disengaged at their workplace. You are working at that organization. You have that particular job. However, you are disengaged at work, which therefore means that chances are your productivity is less. So at a
Hmm.
global level, this is as per to the Gallup's workplace report, workplace well-being report 2023, if I'm not mistaken, where they share that 8.8 trillion USD. This is a huge number. Okay, 8.8 trillion USD is the global business loss due to employee disengagement.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
And 6 out of every 10 employees are quiet quitters. 6 out of
Okay.
every 10 employees.
So, when you say disengagement and quiet quitting, I mean, how does it both? How
So,
are both linked together?
yes. So, which basically means that you are quote unquote officially in that job, but
But not doing anything.
you are doing something just to make it, just to kind of keep the boat moving, sort of.
Bare minimum.
Yes, just to kind of, stick your neck around and say, hey, I have to do out of these 10 tasks, I need to make sure that I get 3 out of my plate. The remaining things I may kind of not want to do it or do it later, etc., etc. I'm definitely not pushing for more. I'm definitely not targeting for more, and no chances that I'm going to volunteer for something which is extra.
Got it, Maya. So, when people, the people that you help with in transitioning from, a corporate job into doing something that they like,
Hmm.
you said very clearly that, you work with people who have 12 plus or 15 plus years of experience and
Sure.
all that. But my question to you is, what are the challenges that most of them primarily face? And if you can share a couple of tips or a couple of solutions or practices that people can follow who are listening that will help them with the transition, I think that'll be amazing.
Yeah. So as you see, the set of folks that I work with, primarily these are senior folks who have quite a few, quite a lot of experience in their particular chosen industry, and many of them, or most of them, are probably going through what we call the midlife crisis. The midlife crisis when you are in your mid 30s, in your mid 40s, which is like, hey, you know what? I know this job like the back of my hand, and I've been doing this for eons, right? But there's something that probably doesn't sit well with me right now, and there's something that I may be I may be having a business idea that I want to work with, or maybe perhaps I'm looking at how can I pay it forward, what can I do differently now for the next phase of my life, and possibly do something which is much more meaningful, much more purposeful. So most people are looking at a sense of purpose. Most people are looking at a sense of purpose, less
Right.
of passion but more of purpose. So how can I really do something that is purposeful and meaningful, whether it is contributing to something that is, let's say, in the world of, say, climate change and sustainability, or working for a cause driven organization, or starting a cause driven organization, whatever it may be. For most of these folks, by now they have probably gained a little bit of financial freedom in terms of having worked with the a certain big organizations for the last 10, 12, 15 odd years, and now they are wanting to look at what does my career 2.0 look like. I also work with some and have worked with some folks who are on the verge of retiring in the next few years, and for them, hey, you know what, I'm going to be retiring in the next 3 years, 5 years time, and now what do I do? What else can I do with all my wisdom that I've gained through the number of years that I've served in the corporate, maybe 20 odd years, 25 odd years, 30 odd years. So what can I do next? And how do I serve the future leaders? How can I be of help and service? So most of the folks that come to work with me, I have seen largely the innate need to give back, to pay it forward, and to do something much more purposeful and meaningful in life. Mostly they are not chasing money. They're not chasing money.
Got it, Maya. Just one final, question on this. Why do they have to come to you? Where are you adding value, and why are they not able to do it without any help?
That's a good question. I would definitely want them to come to me for help. But yes, why is it that they would want to come So this is something I would share is, if you think you are smart enough and intelligent enough to do everything on your own, then probably you need to think again, because even Steve Jobs had a coach. So, folks who are high performers, who have changed the world, they have worked very closely with coaches. The reason you need a coach is having an accountability buddy, and and most importantly, a listening partner. Because if you are sitting with yourself and trying to say, hey, do I do this, do I not do this, do I do this now, do I do this later, if you're trying to find the answer all by yourself, chances are you will be sitting on that procrastination for many years to come. And believe you
Right.
me, I have also seen this happen in practical life, where people have approached me, and we have had conversations saying that I want to do this and that, the other thing. And somehow they were probably not convinced to work with a coach, and say, so they did not. It was not just me, but they did not work with a coach. And a year or 2 years later, when I have gone back to kind of reach out and see, hey, what's happening in your life, you had this plan and the other plan. No, you know what, I'm still sitting with that dilemma, I'm still sitting with that, I'm still sitting at the fence. And that's exactly why you need a coach, to give you the right nudge. And a gentle nudge, sometimes it can come as a hard kick, but for those who need it, they need it. So you have to make that as a conscious choice, to really be very honest, really be very honest and candid with yourself. Like, I mean, don't fool yourself. If you really want to get things done, then go get a coach or a mentor, and start working with them. That's the best advice I could give.
Got it, Maya. Maya, I promise this will be the last question. On behalf of the coaches that are watching this,
Right.
what are some of the best ways, or what are some of the go-to ways that have worked for you in terms of finding your clients?
Finding your clients. Okay. All right. That's an interesting question. That's actually a very interesting question. Also, because, I guess, so I just want to mention, because I am a LinkedIn top voice, and I do write content on LinkedIn. That's the world's number one professional platform. For those who do not know, being on a professional platform like LinkedIn, gives you immense credibility and visibility to establish your personal brand and your professional standing. And therefore, it's like, it's a captive audience, because I am reaching out to the folks who are working in the world of, who are working professionals, whether they are startup founders or entrepreneurs or CHROs or CXOs in XYZ company. They are all sitting on, LinkedIn as a platform. So creating content has been my lead magnet. That's number one. The second is getting clients through referrals. That's my second biggest lead magnet, which is, you have people, you have, I mean, let the work speak for yourself. So
Right.
on any given week, I will at least have one or two referrals, just trickling into my inbox. And I mean, I'm fortunate enough, and I definitely value quality over quantity. For me, if you go to my LinkedIn or wherever, you will never find that I want to try, I am on a mission trying to transform 20 lakh lives or 2 million lives, 3 billion lives, 50 trillion lives. None of that. I do not claim any such numbers saying that I am on a mission to transform this and the other. I am on a mission to transform one life at a time. That's it.
Got it, Maya. Maya, thank you so very much for your time. It was amazing talking to you. Thank you so much for sharing a lot of things very candidly and transparently as well. It was awesome.
Thanks
Thank
so
you so
much
much,
for
Maya.
having me.
My pleasure, Maya.